What is up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Somewhat Sports Podcast. My name is Chris, and I'm joined by two of the greats in this industry, Jerg and Dame. Fellas, how are we this week?
I'm doing good. Christmas around the corner. I'm excited for that. A little 3-day weekend off from work on Monday. Not happy with the weather though. It's freezing.
Uh-huh.
It's like I don't know where this cold weather's coming from. I understand it's winter, but this is like Arctic weather. It's disgusting. Probably not gonna leave my house, but yeah.
Nice.
Other than that, I'm doing good.
Nice. I'm back this week. I'm happy to be back. It was weird not being back. I was weird not recording. That's a rarity and something I tried to avoid, but I didn't really have much of an option for last week. But I'm back, and I'm happy to be here with my boys, with my brothers, who did a fantastic job, by the way. For those that somehow didn't listen, if you didn't, you got to listen to the last episode of Somewhat Spaced and Sports on YouTube and Spotify, of course.
Beautiful plug in early, by the way, Jerg. And to all of the listeners that are listening right now, if you can't tell, me and Jerg are a little congested because fucking Northeast, man. Winter in the Northeast just wrecks dudes. Just ass.
It sucks, and
Yeah.
and the further north and east you go, the colder it gets.
Dame's the only one whose immune system isn't a little bitch.
I don't get sick.
Yeah.
It just is what it is.
All right. But we're not here to talk about our health systems. We're here to talk about sports, and we're going to talk about sports. The rundown this week, finally, we haven't talked about it in a while, but our Ice Prince Jerg has hockey updates. I don't know, man. We've been doing hockey for like 3 years ever since we started the podcast, and the fact that like we haven't done it in a bit kind of feels weird. But we have it back, so that's always a good sign. Major signings have happened in the MLB, including one in particular, but I'll let the boys handle that. And then we're going to talk about briefly the World Cup final that occurred on last Sunday, I believe. One for the ages, of course. We're going to discuss that. I will primarily, Jurgen Name will just hop on and, rebound off what I'm saying, blackboard style. The college students know what I'm talking about. And then we're going to give our crowns and clowns. Yeah, that's right. We're going to cap it off with that. So, hockey, baseball, World Cup, and then NFL. That's the whole rundown. So, Jerg, like old time's sake, we're going to start off with you. NHL updates, NHL talk. You said we're 30 games in. Talk to me, bud. What's been going on?
Yeah, I know it's been a while, and in part because a lot of stuff has gotten in the way of the clearly the greatest sport in the known world. But hockey is roaring, ladies and gentlemen. We're the boys kind of gave like an NBA season update last week, ironically enough. So this is your NHL season update. I'm going to go just quickly division by division and just talk about the noteworthy things to talk about basically when it comes to each division. Starting in the Eastern Conference, is going to begin with the Atlantic Division, and the top three teams in that division so far, kind of what some would have expected, relatively speaking. The Boston Bruins, the Toronto Maple Leafs, and the Tampa Bay Lightning are there. The Boston Bruins, currently the only team in the NHL who has 50 points on the season. They have run roughshod through the league so far, beginning phenomenally to the year. They are now they're currently 25-4-2 as of recording, and they've just been a juggernaut, surprising a lot of people, even myself to an extent. My reason, and this goes back to the preseason division previews that I did, but the only reason that I thought the Bruins were going to have a slow start to the year was because of the amount of injuries this team had. It was Brad Marchand, it was McAvoy, both being out. Even their blue line as a whole was pretty banged up to start the season. But these guys just fought through that. They've been gotten some amazing performances from their respective players. The guys who have come back from injury have done a phenomenal job, to say the very least, in terms of, it's almost like they never left. Brad Marchand, hip issue. Oh, he's back and performing well. 26 points in 23 games. You have David Pastrnak, who's been outstanding with 43 points so far. Even Taylor Hall, 27 points in 31 games for himself, has been fantastic. But the real thing with Boston has been the goaltending. Linus Ullmark looks like he could win the Vezina this season at the pace he's going at. A .937 save percentage with a 1.89 goals against average. 18-1-1. He's only lost 2 games that he started so far. He's just been an absolute beast, to say the very least, with the Boston Bruins. Even their backup goaltending has been it's been solid. It's been pretty good. But the Bruins are the beast of the Atlantic Division right now. The Maple Leafs and the Lightning both behind them. Ebbs and flows to both those teams, but they're both looking like they're starting to perform relatively well. Maple Leafs 7-2-1 in their last 10. Lightning 7-3-0 in their last 10. There's a very clear difference. Even though point-wise, the Detroit Red Wings are pretty close to them, and so are the Sabres. The it's clear who the top three dogs in this Atlantic Division are. It's Boston, Toronto, Tampa, and then there's everybody else. And everyone else is just trying to fight for, at this point, wild card spots, which will also involve the Metropolitan Division. Um, in the Atlantic, and this is the negative about not doing more hockey updates, is because like so much has happened. A couple teams in this division start out relatively well, such as the Buffalo Sabres and such as the Ottawa Senators, but both have really fallen down to earth for themselves. Ottawa have performed well in their last 10, so have Buffalo, but there were some rough stretches there where those teams were losing 5-6 games in a row or lost 7 of their last 10. Kind of coming back down to earth, relatively speaking. It kind of showed that, with the amazing amazing acquisitions that those teams had during the offseason, as well as some guys performing really well for them over the course of this year. Tage Thompson is becoming an absolute stud for the Buffalo Sabres, and it looks like that they were 1,000% correct in offering him the big contract extension they did early. It's looking at this point that those teams still just a little bit too young to really compete in this division right now. And also they just don't have enough pieces between the two of them, particularly in net for both clubs. Funny enough, that's just something noteworthy pointing out. I guess really the question is, currently speaking, the Detroit Red Wings are the fourth team in this division now. It's not 4 teams per division, it's 3 teams and 2 wild cards. And right now, from what I'm looking at, both wild card spots would belong to the Metro. Can a team in the Atlantic Division make a run in the second half? Can the Red Wings, they've looked solid in certain stretches. Can they come back? Can the Buffalo Sabres bounce back from their rough, I don't want to call it middle of the season because we're not really there, but can they bounce back and look like how they did in the first month and a half or so? Can the Florida Panthers, last year's President's Trophy winners, who have taken a significant step back with massive regression, especially on defense and in net for them, can they bounce back and look closer to the President's Trophy team that they were last year? Spoiler, probably not on that regard. I mentioned the Metro a couple times. Let's go to the Metro. Carolina Hurricanes, top of the division there. Well, tied actually with the surprise New Jersey Devils, the team who have shocked everyone, including myself, with how amazing they've been. 22-9-2 to start this season. The Devils have been absolutely phenomenal to this point. I think a 13-game winning streak is what they had earlier on in the season. They were absolutely on fire. With the Pittsburgh Penguins coming in at number 3 in that division, the top wildcard team, as I mentioned earlier, the New York Rangers, not looking as strong as they were last season, and the New York Islanders being the second wildcard team as of now, tied with the Washington Capitals. Again, teams that started out decent, the Philadelphia Flyers, they've fallen off the face of the earth, to say the very least. Philly has just not been good for them. 3-5-2 in their last 10 games. Minus 27 goal differential, second worst in the Eastern Conference. Only team they're better than is the Columbus Blue Jackets, who are outright tanking at this point. Let's be real here. I can definitively say that because I'm a fan of a team that's tanking right now. And it's not been good for certain teams in the NHL this season. That I'll get to here momentarily. But yeah, really with the Metropolitan Division, it's just both sides, like, with the way the NHL playoffs work, as I've mentioned, the top 3 teams in each division clinch in this. 2 wildcard teams, they could be from either division. Right now, the wildcard is firmly, not just in the East, not just in the Metro, it's firmly in New York. The Rangers in MSG, like I said, the Islanders in their beautiful new arena in Belmont. Those 2 clubs are performing well. Islanders getting strong performances from Ilya Sorokin in net. He's another guy looking like a Vezina Trophy candidate. Igor Shesterkin, not as strong as he was last season, but still the Rangers are, they're trying to find their way. I think part of my concern with this team going into the season, and it looks like some of that is true, is that there are just some nights where where Shesterkin will play good, but the offense just is not enough for that team to be able to overcome on nights when Shesterkin might be having an off game per se. In certain losses that they've had. I think of more late last month, but a 5-3 loss to the Devils late in November, a 4-3 loss to the Oilers, a 3-2 loss even to the Ducks. You got to perform better than that if you're the Rangers on a consistent basis offensively. But they're still a playoff team. They're still looking good. They should still be considered a playoff team. And with that guy in net, they're going to comfortably be in the wild card spot and maybe challenge the Penguins here, potentially for the playoffs, although the Penguins have 2 games in hand, so it's going to be easier said than done for the Rangers to be a top 3 seed in this division again, but they should comfortably be in the playoffs. Aside from that, let's shift over to the Western Conference here, where you want to talk about surprise divisions. I think the Central Division right now is arguably the most shocking division in all of hockey to this point. 2 of the top 2 teams in this division I would not have thought would be at that point, but it's the Dallas Stars, number 1 in the Central, the Winnipeg Jets at number 2, with the Minnesota Wild at number 3, the Colorado Avalanche, the defending Stanley Cup champions, barely holding on to a playoff spot right now. They are they are 4th in that division, and tied for the first wild card spot from what I'm looking at here as of this point, with just 38 points on the season. Dallas has been absolutely phenomenal. The offense is looking better than it ever has before. They're actually second in the Western Conference in terms of total goals for, because Jason Robertson has become an absolute stud this season, a Hart Trophy candidate to say the very least. And the goaltending has been pretty well to say the least. Jake Ottinger, there's a reason you have to pay that man his money, and he's performing well for them. Winnipeg, biggest surprise, I think, even more so than Dallas, because the culture in that team was not looking great, but it looks like right now the talent is just, overcoming that because they have been phenomenal to this point. My biggest concern, though, a lot of regulation losses compared to just overtime losses. Now, granted, they are winning in overtime, and that's a big thing. They only have 14 regulation wins, 7 overtime wins for themselves so far. It's going to be interesting to see if they can keep that up. It's always wary to have to constantly rely on overtime. Are you going to start dropping some of those games here? So the Winnipeg Jets, to me, if you ask me in the Central, who's the shakiest team of the top 3, I would say Winnipeg right now. I'm still not completely sold on them. I need to see another 15, 20 games or more from them to see what kind of team they truly are. But alongside that in the West, like I said, there's a reason the Central Division is shocking, because the St. Louis Blues and Nashville Predators, 2 teams that you would almost really pencil in over the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years as being consistent playoff teams, both out of the playoffs right now. St. Louis Blues have been the most up and down team. At one point, I think they were 3-7 or 3-8 to start the year, and then they randomly rip off 6 games in a row. What is this team in terms of consistency? Nobody knows. They literally don't know yet. And part of that is because it's goaltending. Goaltending. That's the biggest thing when it comes to how consistent, how good of a team you are. And the St. Louis Blues have just not gotten good goaltending overall from their goalies. Combined .899 save percentage and combined 3.61 goals against from their 2 goalies so far this season. Not good, St. Louis. And similar thing to Nashville, just struggles in net, guys not performing to the caliber that you would have thought they were, especially a UC Saros, who he's been fine. I mean, the save percentage is actually not terrible with a .913, but it's just getting unlucky on certain nights when it comes to how the team in front of him performs, to say the very least. And now let me move on to the Pacific Division here really quick. Vegas Golden Knights, you want to talk about overcoming injuries like the Boston Bruins. This is the Western Conference version of that. They're very close to 50 points in this regard, 23-11-1, 47 points. They're basically running with 2 goaltenders that not a lot of people had faith in or even knew about at the very beginning of the season. But Logan Thompson has been phenomenal, and so has Aiden Hill. The 2 of them combined, again, 2.74 goals against between the 2. 912 save percentage with them. Just phenomenal job that the 2 of them are doing here. The fact that Vegas has bounced back in this way shows that Bruce Cassidy was an amazing head coaching pickup as well. Who would have thought that he could coach a playoff caliber team? Hint, hint. But they're doing great. Los Angeles Kings are number 2. As expected, they had a little bit of a slow start, but they've rebounded very well, as to be expected. The biggest question for them is goaltending. Jonathan Quick has not been the greatest this season, and that there should have been successor for Quick has struggled as well. Got to see what's going to happen in the future in LA. Number 3 here, and I think Chris is probably going to get a brief kick out of this. Number 3 in the Pacific Division in the playoffs right now, the Seattle Kraken have shocked everyone. No reaction. Okay, thanks, Chris. But the Seattle Kraken at this point, 8.
Are they in the playoffs or not?
They are. They're 3rd in the division.
Well, talk to I don't know. I don't have faith.
That's playoffs. As of now, if the season ended today, the Seattle Kraken would be in the playoffs.
But the season's not ending today, though, so.
Very true. But in all seriousness, Seattle Kraken, massive turnaround compared to what they were through their first 20, 30 games last year. They're 18-10-3. Just all-around improvements across the board. It looks like they have a bit more of an identity on offense, that guys really know their roles. Their defense has been fine. Not outstanding, but it's been fine. But it's been, relatively speaking, the performances net is a lot better for them. Now, it's not because of Philip Grubauer, who's still looking like a bust of a free agency move. He is not performing well. It's the unexpected career resurrection of Martin Jones, who this season, now granted, these numbers are not spectacular, but a 2.91 goals against average and an 8-8. Okay, this is not a good save percentage. 8.89 save percentage. Not good overall, but it's just the team in front of him is playing so good that even on his off nights, they seem to be performing well. And that was evident a couple weeks back when they won a 9-8 game in overtime against the Los Angeles Kings. Yes, a hockey game went to 9-8, ladies and gentlemen. Who says hockey's low scoring? I shan't hear that from you people. Aside from that, the last wildcard team tied with the Colorado Avalanche right now is ironically the team that Colorado beat to get to the Stanley Cup final last year in the Edmonton Oilers. Edmonton, hot start. Connor McDavid is a beast. What else is there to say about him? But they're struggling in that Jack Campbell has not been good. Stuart Skinner has actually been pretty good for them in that they recently gave him an extension. But overall, right now, Edmonton hitting a little bit of a wall for a bit there. They're performing better 5-3-2 in their last 10. We'll see what lies ahead of them. But with 2 of the top 8 players in the game, they'll be fine. And then to end things off in the West, relatively speaking, Calgary Flames at 36 points, just behind the Avs and the Oilers. Similar thing, just these Alberta teams just struggling in net because the goaltending situation has been rough in Calgary this season as well. Of course, we talked about them back in the offseason, went through so many changes. A lot of things had to be fixed about this team and reworked, but it's looking fine so far. If you get just a little bit above average goaltending, Calgary would probably supplant, I'm sorry to say, Chris, they would probably supplant Seattle in the playoff race as of this moment, all things considered.
So what the hell, Jerg?
Look, I need a reaction out of you to make the hockey segment work.
Well,
come on now.
You got it.
But overall, that's basically a real summary of the competitive teams in the West. That's a summary of what the divisions are. I guess my last note to mention about the NHL as a whole is what lies ahead for teams that are not necessarily going to be competitive, and this will probably be something I more so talk about come like April, May, June, and that is the Connor Bedard sweepstakes. I don't think I've put it on the page on our page social media at somewhat.sports on Instagram for those that haven't followed yet for some reason. But on my own social media, I've been a very big proponent of it. Connor Bedard is the projected top overall pick in 2023. He's going to be a part of the World Juniors team, I think, coming up here for Canada. Or with that, he's a stud, and a lot of teams are going to start losing, and teams that have decided, the season is not for us, a lot of teams are going to start tanking here for Connor Bedard pretty soon. I think you're going to see some of those decisions get made here by these tweener teams really relatively quickly. A couple teams that are definitively in the sweepstakes right now, clearly. The Anaheim Ducks, 9-22-3, awful. Only 21 points. The San Jose Sharks, 10-18-6, bad. The Columbus Blue Jackets, 10-20-2, bad. But the ringleader right now, the least amount of points in the NHL, my Chicago Blackhawks, 7-20-4. My God, it's not looking good in Chicago in the short term, in this season. But the long term, as I've said this entire time, ladies and gentlemen, there is one sweepstakes to look after in the NHL. It is tank hard for Bedard. That's what it's at. That's what those teams are competing for. Like I said, I think within the next month or so, you're going to see some of these tweener teams fall out of it, and you're going to see them decide, hey, you know what? It's just not our year. Let's see. Let's see if we could get this kid who's supposed to be franchise changing. And if even not him, this actually is supposed to be projected to be a pretty good overall top 3, top 4 in the draft, especially the top, God, it's a pretty strong top 3. I can't necessarily compare it off the top of my head, but I think this is one of the stronger top 3s we've had in a while. Like, 2023 is going to be a good draft year for certain teams that just look like they are not going to be successful within the short term. And I hope my Blackhawks are the team that ends up winning the draft lottery at the end. So that's my battle cry for my team that is so struggling. And I now know what it is like to be Chris and Dame with the Jets and Knicks. That's what my Blackhawks have been this season, to say the very least. But hey, I have hope and I have faith, and that's really all I can have at this point. But yep, that kind of just about does it for the NHL recap here. Kind of has to be hot-shotted to an extent, because we're so far in. It's like so much has happened, so it's a lot to catch up on. We'll probably do another one maybe around the All-Star break, or maybe just a little bit earlier than that, potentially around the trade deadline, all things considered, and who are going to be the dealers and shakers, the real teams making moves at the deadline in terms of buyers or sellers. That'll be determined at a later date. Going to start probably putting an early list of that together here really soon, but nothing to speak on until we definitively see more rumors coming up, which we slowly will. Not so much in January, I don't think, but January going into February, it's always prime trade deadline talk, usually in the NBA, but in the NHL as well. So look out for that in the near future on the podcast. More hockey will be coming back, ladies and gentlemen. Don't have no fear. The Ice Prince is here.
Can't think of a better way to sign off with that segment. While we move on to the MLB world, where things happened. Notable things happened. Newsworthy things have happened. So last week, me and Dame discussed Carlos Correa signing with the San Francisco Giants. What was the initial deal? Was it 13 years, $350 million?
Yeah.
All right. Well, a few days ago, people were asleep. And not me, of course. I saw the news as it happened. But Carlos Correa isn't signing with the Giants anymore. No. There was some things with his medical. I don't know. Did they reveal what happened with the medical?
No.
Well, not like it matters, to be honest, because he's signing with another team. He's signing with the New York Mets. Is it the same deal, Dame, or is it 12 years?
12 for $315.
Well, a little less, but fuck it. Carlos Correa signs with the Mets. Just joy. This is just joy across the whole podcast. New York's back. New York sports is back. New York baseball is back because actually the Yankees also made a signing, a pretty big one, I would say. But I'll let Dame discuss that when we get to that point. But let's stick with Carlos Correa to the Mets. Dame, let me start off with you. I want your unfiltered, unbiased perspective on this. Thoughts on this unprecedented move? Comments, concerns, criticisms. What the fuck happened? Initial reactions. Reactions after everything kind of, simmered down a bit. After everything kind of marinated. Talk to me, bud.
Starting with the Giants' perspective, it seems like it's not something that was like a current issue. It seems like they just saw something in medicals that could be a future potential issue. And I just believe that they got cold feet with committing that much money, and then they just not made up something, but they made a bigger deal out of something that really wasn't a big deal, and they wanted to kind of renegotiate. And the second that happened, I felt like Correa and Scott Boras, the obviously super agent, felt like disrespecting. We're like, all right, then we're just, if you want to renegotiate, we're opening it up to other teams. And Scott Boras obviously knew that Steve Cohen has a shit ton of money and is going to throw it around wherever he wants. So, of course, he went to him late at night. Steve Cohen's in Hawaii, so he's on different timing. It's like 6 p.m. there, something like that. Hits him, messages him or calls him, whatever it is, and they got a deal done. 12 years, 315. Obviously, it's not the 13, 350. It's not the highest paid shortstop ever. But still, 12 years. It's a long deal. Yeah, he's obviously there for the rest of his career. He gets to play alongside his best friend. One of his best friends, his Puerto Rican brother, Francisco Lindor. That's one hell of a left side of the infield. By far the best in the league. Not even close. For Correa, obviously, you still get the $300 million. You might not get that landmark of being the highest paid shortstop ever, but you play for a team that's a lot closer to winning championship than the Giants were. You probably were going to have to carry this team, the Giants team, on your back, and would have put a lot of stress on him, a lot of pressure on him. But now he goes to his Mets team. Although it's a lot more pressure to play in New York than San Francisco, just being in that lineup with guys like Francisco Lindor, Pete Alonso, Jeff McNeil, Starlin Marte, guys like that, is going to put a lot less pressure on him to perform and carry an offense. And on defense, he's not going to have to play shortstop, of course. Obviously, if Lindor's out for any period of time, Correa will probably just slide over. But for him, you get to play in New York, get you $300 million. You play next to one of your closest friends, and you play for a winning franchise. This deal obviously makes the Mets one of the top contenders in the entire league. From their pitching staff to their lineup is a lot better now. I wouldn't maybe put them as the number one favorite. I would not. I think they're not even the best team in the division, to be honest. I think the Phillies are. I think the Phillies made the World Series, and they added, in my opinion, the best shortstop in the league in Trey Turner. He's better than Carlos Correa, and they added Taijuan Walker. So a team like that, I think, is better than them, and I think they're just neck and neck with the Braves right now. But other than that, I mean, we saw with the playoffs last year with the Phillies, like anything can happen. So as long as you get in the playoffs, you have a fighting chance. You have a solid team. So you get hot at the right time, anything can happen. So from a Mets perspective, obviously their lineup was probably the main reason why they didn't get where they wanted to go last season. So they know they needed to change that. And up to this point, they really didn't do anything to solve that. All they did is re-sign Brandon Nimmo, but like he's just an average kind of guy to put up there. You needed to add real juice in the middle of that lineup, and Carlos Correa was the best player out there to do that. It's a lot of money for a guy who does have injury history, and maybe, who knows, it probably will never come out. Maybe a future concern in his medicals. But for $26 million a year, I mean, the guy's only making $1 million more than fucking Josh Donaldson, starting third base in the New York Yankees, which is ridiculous. But over a 12-year span, you're only paying him, like I said, $26 million a year. You'll be fine, even if he does have an injury history. Even if an injury comes along with his back or his shoulder, which is basically what he's dealt with throughout his career, he's still a superstar player. He's going to bring fans into the seats. He's going to perform in the postseason. He's not a kind of guy that you have to worry about that's scared of the moment or doesn't want to be in the moment. He's just that guy. Trust me, I've seen it when he played on the Astros, whether it was cheating or not. Like, he was just built for the moment over and over again. So from that perspective, it's great for the Mets. They're investing a lot of money into this team. Obviously, they have about a $500 million payroll after taxes and stuff. Something you've never seen before. So the expectations are sky high. Um, I mean, it's obviously World Series or bust. I think before Correa's World Series or bust, but now it's more than ever. And if they don't get it done, it's just gonna be one of the biggest downfalls ever, in my opinion. The fact that you have a $500 million payroll and you can't win a World Series or even make a World Series. Um, and obviously, they better hope he stays healthy or is near the player he is now for a long time because they have over $600 million invested to that left side of the infield. And that's with the team having so many more holes from the bullpen. They're gonna have to resign Jeff McNeil and Pete Alonso, I think, next after this year, and Pete 2 years. So there's still a lot of money that they have to throw around. Obviously, Verlander and Max are old, so they're gonna need to allocate money into the starting rotation as well. So obviously, Steve Cohen is super rich. It is what it is, but I think they have to be careful how they spend their money going forward because eventually, when the new CBA comes around, the other owners aren't going to be happy with the way Steve Cohen's spending money. That's just the reality of it. I personally like it. I think all big market teams make so much money that they just spend as much of it as possible to give the fans the product they deserve. But I just know how the CBA is going to go. I know how this one went where they already want to lower the luxury tax, but with the way Steve's Cohen going now, the Mets have a pretty short window. I think it's another 4 years to the new CBA. In that 4 year window, I mean, he might as well spend as much as he possibly can because I think there's going to be heavy limitations going forward after. But just to sum it all up, Correa obviously still got us $300 million, plays for a better team. It's a huge win for him, and it's a huge win for the Mets. Being back up there as one of the favorites in the league that could win it all, and they added the main thing they needed to add this offseason, which is a big bat in the middle of that lineup.
Then talk about your thoughts on Rendon going to the Yankees.
No, so Carlos Rendon, I'm shocked that Hal Steinbrenner decided to spend any kind of money this offseason. Carlos Rendon, he got a good, I think it was like 6 for 160. It's like $27 million a year for the best starting pitcher left on the market after DeGrom and Justin Verlander. He's been a stud the past 2 seasons, especially because he's stayed healthy before that. He's kind of has injury history, but he's made 55 starts over the last 2 seasons for the White Sox and the Giants, and he's been spectacular. He averages the most strikeouts per 9 innings, something that's going to play great at Yankee Stadium. And just adding him to the rotation gives them, it's not even biased, it's just a fact that they have the best rotation in the league. Starting with Garrett Cole, then you go to Rendon, then you go to Severino, Nestor Cortez, and Frankie Montas is your 5, a guy who was an ace on the team at the trade deadline on the A's. Like, that's a ridiculous starting rotation. And I've said this over and over again. I didn't think starting pitching was their issue. I think hitting was, but at the same time, I didn't really think there was any hitters out there that you could make a play for. Obviously, Carlos Correa was out there, but we know how Steinbrenner ain't paying $300 million to improve his team because, God forbid, he puts a winning team out there and does what he can to put a winning championship team out there for his fans that pay fucking $1,000 for a ticket every game and $100 for chicken fingers and fries. But he goes, does the second best thing, which is improve the starting rotation. They're going to hope that the starting rotation gives up 1 or 2 runs a game, and you could hope Aaron Judge has a 3-run home run. Because other than that, this lineup is still super flawed. But I guess if you're going to go one way or another, you might as well try to help that rotation out to make it the best in the league, like I mentioned, so the offense doesn't have to score as many runs. So I like the deal. Props to Hal for spending money, but this team is still massively flawed, and there's so many more moves that they should be making.
Yeah, I guess I'll start with Correa first, and I'll go. So on the Carlos Correa trade signing, excuse me, which like you guys said happened in the middle of the night, basically. It was a shock to say the least. Didn't expect it. From the Giants' perspective, man, what a whiff! What a whiff this offseason has been now with that. Because I listened to what you guys talked about, and it was something that we kind of talked about when we were doing our free agency predictions, where both myself and Damon said, like, look, the Giants got to go after a big name this offseason, in part to try to build themselves up for the future. And I had put down Carlos Correa as the guy. It just made sense. They needed a new shortstop. That team was starting to get old. I think Dame put it perfectly. They were the definition of a team where everybody overachieved in 2021. And when you saw in 2022, when everyone came back down to earth, what they really were, which was a middling team that maybe could have competed for the wild card in stretches, but ultimately didn't have enough juice, didn't have enough firepower to compete for a full 162 game season at the end of it. And I think Correa would have helped more with that. He is a top tier player, top 2, 3 shortstop in the game. Offensively, you could argue he's maybe the best offensive shortstop in the game, potentially. Like what he would have brought to that team would have been big. The fact that it and it's still not clear, and who knows if it'll ever become clear, the injury, quote unquote, that made them stay away, which from what I'm trying to read, I've tried to do as much reading as possible on this. Apparently it's not an injury he sustained from his major league playing time. Apparently it's something he got, like, I don't know if it was like from the draft process or minor leagues, for however long he was in minors or whatever, but it's not something that has come up recently. So it's been very unclear. I'm with Dame. I think the Giants just got cold feet and they just found a way to get out of this deal whatever way they could. Maybe try to negotiate down. But here's the thing: when you break the contract, it leaves it to the player to renegotiate, and you did it in the worst possible case because Scott Boras is the most money hungry person out there. He's a scumbag of a human being, but god dang is he able to get his players paid. That's one thing for certain. For the Giants, a stain on the organization. This was a complete botch job. And they have a lot to answer for, and this is going to affect them down the line. What big time free agent that they're going to try to be in play for in future off seasons, which there's going to be a couple guys within the next 2 to 3 years that come up, whether it be Juan Soto, whether it be Shohei Ohtani. Like they want to try to be in play for these guys. But if you're going to negotiate with the Giants, it's like, okay, how are you going to try to get out of this contract of ours? Because you've clearly done it with one guy who was an MVP caliber candidate. Why not do it with another one? So for the Giants, this was a stain. This is a disgrace. And I think the organization has a lot to pay for. And I think they're going to feel this in the organization for a long time to come. I think it's a really bad way that they got out this deal. Not like a definitive concern, to say the very least. That's poor move by the Giants overall. When it comes to the Mets side, so let me just run to the Mets side of things here really fast. Obviously, Steve Cohen, he pounces on this. He gets a guy to help out in the infield, helps out with an offensive boost, to say the very least, when it comes to that. You got him now. Just look at this offseason, what they've had. They let DeGrom go, so they get Quintana and Verlander to be able to help. They got the international player, Kodai Senga. You got Brendan Nimmo to help with maintaining him. You got bullpen more, keeping Edwin Diaz, having Adam Ottavino, getting David Robertson, which I think could be one of the more underrated signings of the offseason. And now you get Correa to help out offensively. I think the Mets, as of now, I have to continue to let the last bits of the offseason play out, even though I think we're basically done. I think the Mets should be the favorite in the NL East right now. They made these phenomenal moves, and as long as they are healthy, I think this New York Mets team should be considered the favorite here. I think the Phillies still have a good bit to prove, especially with Bryce Harper being out for the beginning of next season. And I think with the way the Brave season has ended, sans the World Series, they've had some heartbreaks here, and especially with how last season ended, where it looked like they didn't even belong on the same diamond at times. Like, I just need to see the rest of, I need to let the offseason end, reevaluate all the teams, who added what, who lost what, and then we can make our decisions from there. But I think right now, I don't think it's a stretch to say the Mets are not only the favorite in the NL East, they're going to be a top 4 favorite in the NL this upcoming season to make it out. Like, that's how.
Sorry, what was that? I didn't hear you.
To me, they are presently, barring a reevaluation of every team, they are my favorite in the NL East right now, and they should be considered one of the top 4 teams in the National League as a whole.
Nice.
So,
Sex to my ears.
Oh my god. So the Mets, this was a great move. I get the idea of being concerned, but this has been the way for a while with MLB, and I think maybe Dame got to mention it. Maybe come the next lockout, not only will it have to deal with what the luxury tax is, but finding a way to not have to give these 12, 13, 14 plus year contracts to every single big time free agent may need to be another way to figure this out, because obviously teams, like, if they don't like so much to give these deals, and yet they are oh so willing to do so. It's guys talking out of both sides of their mouth, if you ask me, but it's baseball. Hypocrisy is embedded in the sport as a whole. But I think this was an absolutely phenomenal move, to say the very least, for the Mets. I think the power that he adds to the lineup, a 20-plus home run guy. Dame has said it, look, whether you think it's cheating or not, it doesn't matter. This is a guy who's won a World Series. This is a guy who's competed. He's been an ALCS MVP. He's a great shortstop, and he just adds more hitting to this lethal lineup, to say the very least. I think it was absolutely phenomenal for the Mets to add him overall. I think at least the first half of this deal is going to be great, and that's the most important thing that these teams pay for. Steve Cohen is paying for the first 5-6 years of the Carlos Correa contract, which is kind of like Dave said. I think the Mets are trying to establish a window here of when they can really be at the peak of their powers to compete, which is what I like. Set expectations, set a window. What do we got? I think the Mets are on their way to doing that. To say the very least. So that's kind of all my thoughts when it comes to the Carlos Correa stuff from both sides. Terrible by the Giants. Great move by the Mets. We'll see how this pays out in season in and of itself. The Carlos Rodon deal. Didn't someone on this podcast say the Yankees are actually going to finally pony up and pay for a pitcher? I wonder who that was. I think it just made sense. Him joining the lineup, all likelihood being the number 2, being the top lefty in this rotation now, bumps down Severino, bumps down Nestor. Like Dame said, when you can have a former ace on a previous team is now basically your number 5. That's how you know your starting rotation is stacked, to say the very least. Again, this is something I would need to reevaluate, but certainly the Yankees through 1 through 5 are at minimum top 3 pitching rotation in the league. If not, they probably are the number 1 pitching rotation. They clearly had a lot to prove, like Dame said, with the Steinbrenner stuff. I think the Aaron Judge thing, I had said it on the podcast when we talked about it a couple weeks back, but I really felt that the Judge signing had to be the wake-up call to Steinbrenner and Cashman that you guys need to start being more aggressive here. You have a window with Judge. Let's make something happen, especially with naming him the captain, by the way. Like, you have... You tried to set the expectations on him, but now you set the expectations on yourself. Like, look, you just gave this guy the contract. You just named him the captain. You as an organization, this is on you. You guys need to succeed over the next 9+ years. This is now a full Yankees burden to bear. There needs to be a World Series coming to New York, and the Yankees have to bring that World Series back to the Pinstripes at some point over the next 9 seasons for all this to work out, for the legacies of these guys, for them to be remembered in any way, shape, or form in a good light. Because like Dame has mentioned on this podcast before, the reputations for some of these guys have taken a hit, and Baby Steinbrenner especially, he is not his father. That is something that we could say easily by far. I think just overall great signing. One of the more consistent guys throughout the last couple of seasons. Had some injury issues before, but clearly he's looked great when he's been at peak form. And again, unlike the last 2 years where he was the ace, you're taking an ace from a team and now he's your number 2. Like, geez, this is amazing. Kind of like Dame said, I actually disagreed a little bit last year. I thought starting pitching rotation was an issue for the Yankees last year. It just wasn't strong enough on paper to me. And now it's way stronger than what it was last year by miles. I don't know, maybe like this may be more of a Dame thing, but I would maybe look at the bullpen. I don't know how strong like Dame would personally rate the bullpen of the Yankees, but I think the bullpen would just be personally what I would try to look forward to this team. And if you can dump Josh Donaldson as soon as possible, that would be nice, but I don't know how easy that's going to be. But like, this is not a perfect Yankees team, but this is a Yankees team that is now spending money. This is a Yankees team that is trying to really go after it. And this is a team that now they can kind of focus on fixing the holes on this team, fixing what they need to. This was, yes, you could argue it's a need, but it's more to get like a ace caliber pitcher on your rotation. I think it's a want. And now I think the Yankees can move on from wants to needs now. And I think that's a big thing for the organization to be able to do on their competing timeline. So overall, phenomenal move here by the Yankees, I feel. And once again, another prediction that this podcast just absolutely nailed with their MLB free agent predictions. Job well done between you and me, Dan.
I'd say the city of New York is just up right now. Wow. Just winners all around.
If we don't get a Yankees Mets World Series within the next 3 years, I think it's going to be a disappointment on both sides. Both teams have that kind of talent.
Oh, well, the Mets will get there.
Neither team is getting there.
The Mets will get there.
Neither team is getting there.
I don't know. How about you guys beat the Astros first, then we could talk.
How about you get out the wild card game?
Oh, we will. Oh, we will. We will.
Well, don't try to claim the opposing pitcher is using like a sticky substance as well, because that was
that was bad. We were down bad that time. That was bad.
You're still
real bad.
You specifically are down bad.
Why me?
Just
all right. That's it for baseball talk. Let's move on over to the World Cup. The World Cup occurred Sunday. Argentina defeated France. It was 3-3, but they beat them in penalties in what is being described as the greatest World Cup final of all time. Fellas, well, I know I saw it. Jurg, I believe you saw it as well.
Yes,
Dame,
sir.
did you watch it or
Yes,
who'd you watch it with? Okay, me too. But um,
I just didn't watch penalties, but I watched everything.
what? Why?
I was on my way to Manny's house to watch the game, the Jets
Wow.
game, the more important game that day.
All right. Um. Yeah. So the statement is true. Greatest World Cup final of all time. My God, it was back and forth. The hype delivered, man. Messi did his thing. Mbappe did his thing. Argentina, shout out to you. Guys, well, me and Dame kind of discussed the game a bit last week. Jerry, you weren't here, but the situation before us was so rare. It was the makings of a Hollywood blockbuster, the makings of a fairy tale ending. It's Messi's last World Cup. It is a chance to solidify himself as the GOAT. Of course, that's always going to be subjective. You have your Pele's, you have your Maradonas, you have your Ronaldos, and you have your Messis. But the culmination of what I think would be a perfect career was going to be a World Cup win for him, and it happened. And it's just crazy that this scenario was presented before all of us. And across from him is someone who I think has a legitimate shot, a very high chance of becoming the GOAT of the future. Now he has the talent to do it. He's gonna have to win a few Ballon d'Ors, a few Champions League titles. Get out of that France league, brother. I know PSG is paying you a shit ton of money, but go to the Premier League, brother. That's where all the competition is, and that's where you can really prove yourself. But neither here nor there. Man, this was, I think, delivered across all cylinders here. I think it delivered across all cylinders. First half, I know you guys aren't the biggest soccer connoisseurs, but Argentina's defense, bro, holy shit,
Oh, they were phenomenal.
they suffocated France. They suffocated France. Holy shit! And if you go, my perspective is that if you go on that type of strategy, if you go all in on defense, I mean, obviously there's a high chance you're gonna get fatigued by the end, and I think that's what happened. However, they had a 2-0 lead. That's decent, but I do if anyone saw the Argentina Netherlands game, Argentina choked that, and that's why I was very skeptical even when they were up 2-0. I'm like, France is a different beast. This isn't over until it's literally over. 3-0, I would have had breathing room, but it was 2-0. They've choked before, and it's France, and they went all in defensively in the first half. First, 80 minutes, right? But then, of course, they had that penalty. Mbappe makes a 2-1, and then Mbappe. That was literally one of the craziest things I've seen. That second Mbappe goal was one of the greatest goals I've ever seen. Actually, they tie it within 2 minutes. Lord Jesus! And then after that, after Mbappe ties it 2-2, the next 30 minutes were some of the best soccer I've ever seen. But it was anyone's game after that. I knew France was going to go down easy, but yeah, I would say I know Messi won, and he had, I believe, 2 goals. Well, Argentina won. Messi had 2 goals. Mbappe had the greatest individual performance I've seen. Hat trick in the World Cup final. He scored in the World Cup that they did win in 2018. He has a chance to be the greatest of all time, I believe. I know it's very early. He's 23, and I think a win if France won this year, if they won the World Cup like a few days ago, if they beat Argentina, wow, 2 World Cup medals, gold medals by the age of 23. You score a hat trick? Are you kidding me? It's just the stars delivered. Look, I think soccer's getting more increasingly popular in the West, and for good reason. And this game is like a perfect example of why it's getting more popular in the West. It's just everything was there. You had the 2 stars. You have the past and the future colliding in the present. Both of them delivered. Me and Dame, this shit got me pissed off. By the way, we have a mutual friend known as Brian. Okay, our good friend Brian was chat. This is why I don't like to chat until the fucking game is over. Tweeting everywhere that stupid Instagram notes that everyone's there. Yo, France sucks. For Argentina got this in the bag, and then what happened? And Mbappe
He's
shoved
a
his.
crackhead. I don't
Just
know what you want.
why? Why? I'm like, why do you have to chat? And then once everyone started chatting, Mbappe just shoves his big ass schlong across the entire field. Just so dumb, bro. I hate this. And then, of course, Heart Attack City, because I kind of wanted Messi to win. I want Argentina to win just so Messi could kind of have that World Cup win. But it was the jumping to conclusions that France would just go down easy. I'm like, dude, it's not going to happen. Like, we've seen Argentina choke to, like, weaker teams. But luckily, they won in penalties. The penalty shootout, Martinez, Argentina's goalkeeper, stepped the fuck up. He had the game of his life, showed up when he needed to. That's you guys know what I'm talking about, but it was that save at the 122nd minute.
Yo, that was amazing.
To me, that is single. Dude, France literally was gonna win it with 10 seconds left. That was it. After that, that was legitimately it. I could not believe he saved that, bro. As soon as he got I think the French player because I think Argentina's defender kind of mistimed it. I was like, oh my god, it's over. It's literally over. And then with the save of the century, that save, I think all the other storylines has kind of overshadowed that save. But oh Jesus, is that going to be talked about in the future? But yeah, Argentina wins. Yeah, Messi solidifies himself as the GOAT. Everyone's happy. France, you're going to be a dynasty until Mbappe retires. It's just facts. They have enough talent. Not just him, by the way. You have your Griezmanns of the world. You have your Pogba's of the world. You're going to breed talent. You're always going to breed talent, so you're going to be fine. I know Benzema's going to retire. I think this is Giroud's last World Cup as well. Who knows? But, don't sell yourself too short, because a lot of teams that win the World Cup, the next World Cup, they don't even make it past the group stage. I think it happened with Spain, won in 2010. Germany. They get eliminated in the group stage in 2014. Germany wins 2014, got eliminated in the group stage 2018. France, you won in 2018. You make it back to the final in 2022. You're probably going to make it until the Final Four again until 2030, to be honest. So, wow, what a game. It was, sporting event of the fucking decade so far. Wow, I was just happy delivered. But it was the ending that, sans French people and Ronaldo fans, it was the ending everyone wanted, because Messi gets to lift up that trophy. But Mbappe is coming. That boy is a bad, bad boy. I'm telling you, serious GOAT potential. But yeah, guys, I mean, what were your thoughts on the game? Thoughts on the results? Was it everything you guys thought it would be? Comments, concerns? Anyone could jump in right now.
Yeah, I'll start this. What a game it was. I've seen a couple World Cup finals now, 4 to be precise. And that was the best one by far that I've seen, and it's going to take something very special to surpass that. You said it, so trying to unpack it is it's just rough to say, because that game had a lot of moments. Can I just say, I just want to get one thing off my chest real quick. To all you little fuckers in these Instagram and Twitter posts that are like, explain this in NBA terms, explain this in NFL terms, shut the fuck up. That was a shtick that got old a long time ago, and especially with soccer. Look, I'm not the biggest soccer or football fan. I'll admit that. That's not my number one sport. It's nowhere near my number 2, as a matter of fact. But I have enough respect for it. I'm not going, that's the stupidest thing to explain in NBA terms. The soccer guys make more on their singular contracts than half these players in these leagues will make in their lifetime, and even more than that. So please shut up when it comes to those comments. I'm so sick of it. I'm a big LeBron guy. His block or that save, it's not even a contest.
Nothing comes close to Martinez's save.
Nothing. I just had to get that off real quick. You little fucking IG trolls. Oh, explain this in NBA terms. Explain this and shut up and leave the post, you schmucks. Anyways, back to the actual game itself, where the adults are talking. Phenomenal game. On the Argentina side, like you said, Chris, I noticed it because I've seen a little bit of soccer. Their defense was amazing. It felt like France only got past midfield 2 or 3 times total in the first half. And when they did, they didn't even keep the ball for long. It was outstanding defense by Argentina, and the chances that they got going up 2-0. And the funny part is, for me, because you mentioned how Argentina was up, Chris, the second that France got that penalty for the first Mbappe free kick, I literally thought to myself, okay, France is going to tie this game. They were down 2-0. Mbappe didn't even get... This was before they even showed it was going to be Mbappe kicking, although let's be real here, we all knew it was going to be him. But this was even before it showed he was going to kick it. And I'm like, oh, France is about to tie this game, because that's how talented they are. Can we just give context to the fact that this French team was missing a couple pieces from their last World Cup team that won?
Oh, France is a different beast, bro. I'm telling you. I don't want to take away from Argentina though, because
Oh
injuries
no, I
happen in
know.
soccer a lot.
Yeah,
But
yeah, no, but I just want to give that context for France, where it's like this team was not even 100%. They didn't have all their guys, and it's not because their guys retired. It's because guys were hurt, and they
yeah,
still made it back to this
yeah.
point.
Fuck Benzema though. Just
That,
putting that out there.
but like, so there's that Mbappe, utterly phenomenal in this game. I'll get to him in a moment. I'm going to kind of save him for last because I think his is the most interesting thing to dissect because we still have so much future to talk about him. But France ties the game. Then Messi with a just otherworldly like goal 3-2. You think it's over. You're hearing Messi, Messi, Messi. He like they're about to win, and then France ties it again because of undisciplined play with the guy's elbow being out there. 3-3 game, and then like you said, Chris, save of the decade, save of the century, save of the like. There's not enough like uh how do I say this? There's no way to overhype and overreact what that save was. It literally won Argentina the World Cup. That save specifically right there won them the World Cup. And like that save is going to be on highlight reels for years to come. In the 2122 World Cup, they're going to show this save as one of the greatest World Cup moments of all time. That's how legendary that save is going to be. Now, are we still around for 21-22 is the question. Not us specifically, but just humanity as a whole. That remains to be seen. But let's just assume best case scenario for that. But that's what the kind of save that was. And then the penalties, you could tell early that I think Argentina was just more confident. Aside from Mbappe, of course, he sings he did his work. But I felt Argentina was very confident in the way that they were attacking it, and they just got the edge once Argentina got the first save, because it's always about who gets the first save / stop in the penalties. And once Argentina got the first one, I knew it was over. I knew it was going to, they had it in the bag. 4-2 for them in penalties. Absolutely phenomenal job overall. Messi, like you guys said, I loved the conversation that you guys again had last week. You guys were amazing. Messi solidifies himself in the GOAT conversation in terms of, even if you disagree, if he's not your GOAT personally, he now firmly belongs in the conversation, because I kind of feel like with every sport, with basketball, with the greatest of all time, it's got to be guys with at least 3 championships, if not more. With hockey, you got to have at least won one Stanley Cup to be in the conversation of the top 5, top 10, top 15. In football, how many Super Bowls did you win as a quarterback, or for other positions as well? Baseball, how many World Series did you win? That's why Derek Jeter's kind of overrated, because of all the World Series they won. But irregardless of that, it's all about the championships you win at the grandest stage of it all. And in soccer, yes, there's the Champions League, and you have the tournaments like there's CONCACAF and all that. But ultimately, the World Cup is the ultimate thing where you win this, your legacy is solidified for all time. And this was it for Messi. It firmly puts him above so many of his contemporaries, and it puts him in that conversation as, you know, even you could even go past the greatest in his sport. You were talking about one of the best athletes we've seen across all of sports for a lifetime, for a generation, for all time. That's a special thing to be in. So all congrats to Argentina. All congrats to Lionel Messi. He absolutely deserves it. Firmly above Ronaldo, that scumbag, as he should be. It was a beautiful thing, to say the very least. And the way that they partied in Argentina. Hey, Argentinians, they apparently know how to party. They had to be helicoptered off their team bus because it was not moving at all, to say the very least. Now to the Mbappe part in particular, because I really love the fact, again, that you guys brought this up last week. If you didn't listen, Somewhat Space in Sports on YouTube and Spotify, it's last week's episode. You have to consider Mbappe's 23 years old. He's already up there in the all-time World Cup goals. How many career goals does he have in the World Cup again, Chris? Is it what, 10? 9?
12?
Is it 12? Holy. Okay. So the question for Mbappe, it's not, is he going to break the World Cup all-time goal record? It's, can he get to 20 in his career?
I think you will.
Will he be the oh, agreed. He's going to shatter it. Will he be the first ever player to get to 20 career World Cup goals in competition? How many more goals is he going to score throughout his World Cup career? Because he's, what, 23? So you got your age 27, you got your age 31. He's so young and athletic, and these athletes are so different. He's probably going to play in his age 35. He has 3 more World Cups to get there. He's going to get there. Like, this is easily the most talented. You're talking about the next generation of soccer. You're talking about the most talented player in the modern generation of these current guys to look out for, and the most prolific international goal scorer at the grandest stage. I'm specifying grandest stage because, like I said, I'm not the strongest. I can't name you Champions League, what players are the best in Champions League the last 2-3 years, but I can tell you at the World Cup, Mbappe has been the best goal scorer in the last 2 World Cups. That's without question. And with winning the golden boot this year. So the legacy for him is going to be interesting in terms of how many more times France can get back here and how many more times that he will win it is a big thing. If he can have multiple, that would be massive to say the very least. But like you said, I think this is the biggest thing for Mbappe's legacy, Chris. He has to leave PSG. He has to leave PSG. He has to prove himself in the biggest leagues in the world. He needs to sign with one of the bigger clubs, whether it be in the English league, whether it be, going over to La Liga. Hell, go to Serie A over where you are in France right now, in Paris, because it's just you have to take that next step, and no one is going to give him his due diligence outside of the World Cup until he takes that next step. Like, he needs to leave PSG definitively, without a shadow of a doubt, and that should be something that should happen within the next 2 years. If he's still 25 at PSG, I think we need to start asking a couple questions.
I really want him to go to the Premier League, man, because you could jumpstart that rivalry between him and Haaland, because those two are the next two titans of soccer. Haaland's making that jump, and he's thriving in Man City now. I think if he were to leave, it would be Real Madrid. Those fuckers, man. They would snag him. I mean, I would love him to go to Chelsea, but it's not going to happen probably. But yeah, Mbappe, please go to the Premier League, man, and that would make it so much more fun. It's just that's probably that Premier League is the best league, in soccer, hands down. It's the English league. But yeah, I agree with you. I literally agree with everything you said, Jerk. It's again, he's going to have to win a few Ballon d'Ors, some Champions League titles, but a World Cup at age 20, pressure's off. In my opinion, now it's just building your legacy at this point. I believe he'll have at least two by the time it's all said and done, at least two. And to be honest, bro, look, he was about to have two. He was literally about to have two, and at that point, we would have probably been discussing this man may have three.
Yeah,
3 World Cup medals. Woo! Maybe before the age of 30. Come on now.
Pele's the only other guy, right, with 3.
Yeah, so that's good company if you ask me. Dame, do you have anything to say?
I feel bad. I feel like we stole all the combos.
Yeah. The U.S. is winning in 2026. I'm excited. Christian Pulisic is going to have as many as Mbappe. It's exciting.
I mean, yeah. The next World Cup should be fun. At least
it's like 8 games.
It's also going to be. It's going to be interesting
bigger.
now because a lot of these people.
64 teams is doubled, I think.
For sure, and I just think. Look, no more Ronaldo, no more Messi, no more Suarez, no more Benzema. There's going to be some Neymar's going to be older. It's going to be a lot of these fresh young faces now, and I don't think France is always going to be a contender no matter what. They're always going to be one of the favorites. But again, you never know now. You never know who's going to be there's going to be new favorites. I think the Belgium team is officially done. I mean, they've been done. They haven't been done shit. But yeah, hopefully Germany comes back to form. I mean, they've been disappointing me for so long now. But yeah, I mean, we'll see how Spain does. Italy hopefully could get in, but I really think there's this sense of unpredictability in the next World Cup, and it's gonna be in the USA, so should be fun. But
well, not just USA. If I may here real quick, 2 last points about just soccer as a whole, Chris. I think because you were mentioning it earlier, it being more popular here over in the West compared to in Europe and in Africa. The World Cup being across America, Canada, and Mexico in 2026 is going to be massive. Those are 3 countries that, especially the U.S., already has the infrastructure to support the World Cup. There are plenty of stadiums in the U.S. that can support and have soccer going on, that's for sure. And I think in Mexico and Canada, it makes it more entertaining. It's going to make it more exciting with a bigger tournament. This could be what really jumpstarts the men's national team and what they should do, which they should start with getting a new coach / manager. But at the same time, this could be the Western, shot of adrenaline needed to be really ramp up to perform well in this next World Cup, and then afterwards as well on the men's side. A shout out to the women's team that has just dominated women's soccer for the U.S. for 2 decades now. But that's point number 1. Point number 2 I want to make, and this is for if by chance you're listening to us and you're more of a hardcore soccer fan, and people who are more hardcore soccer fans, the hardcore soccer fans, if you should be paying attention to anything over the next 4 years as we go to that next cycle, You got to pay attention to the under 18 tournaments over the next 2 years, and you got to pay attention to the under 20 tournaments over the next 4 years. Because I think you're going to start seeing kids from these under 18 and under 20 teams for these countries, especially like Germany, Belgium, I think even England still, like these teams are going to start to pluck like whoever the best of their youth players are and potentially put them on their World Cup rosters. I think at least they should and they have to. Uh, I know maybe that like I know Mbappe is such a special case here, but if I'm a team, why not take a couple of my 20 to 22-year-olds for the next World Cup cycle if they're performing at the high enough level? I know soccer is different. I know it's not necessarily the same as like the sports that we mainly talk about and watch a lot, but I think if you are these big time clubs who have had all of this success country wise, you have to start considering like who on my under 20 team right now can I look forward to having in the 2026 World Cup? Is there anyone on the under 18 team that's 17 right now that 4 years from now they're still playing so phenomenal that we can consider having them in 2026? I think 2026 is going to be the World Cup that changes a full generation of soccer fans for years to come. And I'm really excited that it's happening here in the Western side of things.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. All right. Clowns and crowns for week 15 of the NFL, fellas. I'll go first. Let's start off with the clowns, and then we'll go to our crowns because we start off with losers and we end off with winners. We might have a consensus clown for this week. Maybe, I don't know. Every time I say that, we usually end up picking different ones, but I'll go with my clown of week 15, Jacoby Myers and the Patriots. I mean, guys, what happened? What happened?
It was bad.
It was one of the most drunk plays I've ever seen. I don't know what the thought process was. It's hilarious that this happened to the Patriots. It's hilarious that this happened to Belichick. Maybe this was a Matt Patricia thing. Who knows? But man, oh man, Mac Jones with the worst attempt possible to try to bring down Chandler Jones. I mean, I can't feel bad, but Lord Jesus, it literally lost him the game. And it's detrimental because they're in the playoff hunt, right? Good for Jets fans. Good for the Jets because, we need the Patriots to suck. And to be honest, I don't want the Pats to get into the playoffs. It's a fucking boring ass team. So I don't care, but they're losers for that. You got my clown of the week, Jacoby Myers. You should get my crown for making this shit happen, for making the Patriots lose. But, logically speaking, you kind of get the clown of the week. So clown goes to Jacoby Myers. Jurg, your clown?
I feel bad if this is Dame's because there's one other clown to mention here. And I feel bad because I think this is the only other obvious one. So, but I have to go with it. The Colts blowing a 33-0 lead.
Oh,
Like,
forgot about that.
Like when you said consensus here, Chris, I'm like, okay, he's talking about the Colts. Then when you said Jacoby Myers, I'm like, all right, yeah, that was a pretty bad play too. But the Colts as a whole, that organization, I said this probably a couple times on the pod. Well, maybe only once or twice, but I'm going to say it definitively here. Let me make it clear. The Colts need to go nuclear this offseason, and just damn near everyone needs to go. Quentin Nelson, Shaq Leonard, DeForest Buckner, Kwity Paye, I guess one or two other pieces on the offensive line. And then I really got to start scratching my head about, okay, who else am I going to keep on this team? Matt Ryan is gone. He's not coming back. Chris Ballard's getting fired. Jeff Saturday should have been, his card to get in the building should have been deactivated yesterday. Like, it's not good. It's really not good at all. If you're the Colts, Jim Irsay, you got to figure a lot of things out, and it starts with picking your new quarterback in this next draft. If the Colts don't go quarterback in this next draft, we don't have to talk about them next season, boys. So that's it. But for this particular 33-0 lead blown, you're clowns. That was just a terrible performance. Rough.
I'm gonna actually go with Dak Prescott.
Ooh, okay.
Blowing a 17-point lead in the third quarter to the Jacksonville Jaguars and throwing that pick six in overtime to lose it. It's embarrassing. The Jags defense sucks. You had a chance to go down the field and win your team the ball game with the offense you have, the good offensive line, Pollard, Zeke, CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup. You have the weapons to go down the field against the Jacksonville Jaguars defense, which is one of the worst in the league. And you go and you throw a pick six to lose a game. And you, on top of that, obviously you had a 17-point lead in the third quarter, which is more than enough against a team like that to win you the ball game. If you're the Dallas Cowboys and you're Dak Prescott getting paid $40 million a year. So, Dak Prescott, my clown of the week.
Okay, that's actually a good segue to the crowns of NFL Week 15 because my crown goes to Trevor Lawrence, who has arguably been the best quarterback in football the last month. I would say,
Rob,
possibly.
I think so.
He is panning out to be who we thought he was. In college. 27 for 42, 318 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception that I thought would lose the game for them. Guess not, because Mike McCarthy's such a genius, and Cowboys are going to cowboy. He is, oof, man. It hurts to watch because he's not a Jet, but he's playing brilliantly, man. And funny enough, he plays the Jets tonight in a few hours actually. So it's gonna be tough to see him thrive. But if he doesn't, narratives, baby. But yeah, he's been playing like the best quarterback in the NFL. Um, he's the reason why the Jags might sneak into the playoffs. They might. Very sneaky, sneaky Jags, but
I hope so, because that means knocking out the Titans, and
that
we
is
want that.
true. That is true. And of course, we're big Trevor Lawrence fans in this podcast. But Trevor Lawrence gets my crown of the week. Jerg, your crown.
Oh God, my crown. I just want to say for your Trevor Lawrence point, Chris, like what he's done over the last 4 weeks, like just to better help your case for him. Over the last 4 games, he has thrown for. Let me make sure I'm doing my Steiner mathematics here. 11 touchdowns and 1 interception, and he's thrown over a 70% completion percentage in 3 of his last 5 games, including an 80% completion percentage, even past that against the Raiders. So over the last 6 weeks, Trevor Lawrence is certainly up there in terms of top quarterbacks in the NFL, to say the very least. Not a bad selection there. He was my crown for one of the previous weeks last week when I was absent for a reason, because he just absolutely was doing God's work, to say the very least, in that regard. Okay, my crown for this week. This is a interesting week to like look for crowns and clowns winners, because like there were good games, but it was hard for me to really point out like a historic, like, I guess if I have to give my crown, just because this basically like clinched, I think, the AFC East for them. Josh Allen, 25 of 40, 25 of 40, 304 yards, 4 touchdowns in the air, 10 carries for 77 yards on the ground. He did his job against the Miami Dolphins. That was a revenge game for the Bills, considering how they lost to the Dolphins earlier this season. I absolutely loved it by Josh Allen. He specifically is starting to really carry this team, and he's starting to show a little bit that he has that true X factor in him. And that's going to be big, because the Buffalo Bills are trying to fight for the AFC top seed here, and it's a very close race. They're 11-3, the Chiefs are 11-3, and the Bengals are creeping up at 10-4. The Bengals have a game here, not this week, but next week against the Buffalo Bills. That could decide a lot of things. That could be an early.
Whoa. I didn't
Yeah,
know that.
yeah, Bengals Bills next week
Holy
on.
shit.
It's Monday Night Football, January 2nd, and that game is could potentially be for a lot. We could see the Bengals clinch the AFC North early if the Ravens continue to spiral down the way they have. We could see if the Bengals beat them, then the Bengals will have defeated the Bills and the Chiefs, which gives them the head-to-head lead, tiebreaker advantage for the top seed in the AFC. There's a lot on the line in Week 17 here, so that's gonna be a big time game, and Josh Allen needs to be at his best for that, and he was showing that he can be this week. Again, amazing performance. My crown goes to Josh Allen.
My crown is going to go to probably the guy who has the most crowns from me. It's going to be Patrick Mahomes.
Knew it.
Fuck you. He went 36 for 41, 336 yards, 2 touchdowns. He ran for another one in overtime. 20 straight completions at one point. I mean, the guy's spectacular, and people are going to say, oh, it was against the Texans. Well, show me a quarterback who went 36 for 41, 80% completion percentage against the Houston Texans. I'll wait, because it's literally nobody. Because nobody is Patrick Mahomes. He's the king of the kings. He's the top of the top. He's the best of the best. I've said this over and over. There's no debate with him. And he just keeps proving it week after week. I mean, a spectacular performance that I think people aren't talking about as much. But he was great, and the Chiefs are rolling right now.
Yep, they are rolling. I mean, the Chiefs could be the big winner out of the Bengals-Bills game, actually. Because if the Bengals win, and the Chiefs kind of handle business from here on out till Week 18, then they get the first.
Well, no, the Bengals would get the first seed because they beat the Chiefs. Remember,
right? But aren't the Chiefs
both the Bills and the Bengals beat them?
But no, don't the Chiefs have a better record than the Bengals? They're a game ahead.
They go well as of now. But again, like, so we're assuming the Chiefs. You're right if the Chiefs go undefeated, but like, look, I love the Chiefs. They're probably going to lose one of these last games, even though they have no business losing it.
That's what I said. If they handle business and the Bengals beat the Bills, and the Chiefs end up getting first place, and then they get the bye, best case scenario for them, because it likely means
They're not losing any of these games. I'm telling you right now. They're 10-0 against the Broncos, and then they face the Raiders.
the Raiders might be sneaky though. I won't lie.
Mahomes is undefeated in real divisional games.
I know,
He's not
bro,
losing that
but
game.
the Chiefs like to
He's
be
not
fucking
losing.
cute. They like
He's
to
not
act
losing.
cute. All right, but that would be best case scenario for them because if the Chiefs get the bye, they end up getting the winner of the 4 versus 5 matchup, which means the second and the third eventually, if they mean the semis, would be the Bills and the Bengals. And if the Chiefs get to avoid both of them, at least for the time being until the AFC championship game, that's a huge relief and a huge W because you let the Wolves just kind of cancel themselves out. So, yeah, you're right. That Bills Bengals game, I did not know that was a thing. Wow, gonna be a very testy pick for the Somewhat Sports weekly picks. That's gonna be interesting. Okay, I think that'll do for this week. What a star-studded week, packed week as always. Return of hockey, baseball news everywhere. It's been like 3 weeks straight of baseball news. We even got soccer talk, some pretty decent soccer talk, and of course, Crowns and Clowns, the best critically acclaimed segment on podcast networks. Jarek, where can they find us on the socials?
For more amazing picks and predictions by us, if you want to see the weekly Somewhat Sports NFL picks that Chris so beautifully mentioned, you got to go to somewhat.sports on Instagram for that, ladies and gentlemen. And you'll see more there. You will see polls that we end up posting. We're very active with the polls when it comes to the World Cup. And we'll definitely be doing that once again come the NFL playoffs, come the NBA playoffs, the Stanley Cup playoffs. Like when it's the most important time of the year for these sports, the IG story gets a rolling. And of course, we'll eventually put some more summaries up for our Crowns and Clowns, and we'll just, we'll consistently post. You guys will get notifications when the newest episodes are out on YouTube and Spotify. Somewhat Spaced in Sports there. Like, comment, subscribe to YouTube. Give us 5 stars on Spotify. Leave us some feedback. Let us know what you think of the show. Like Chris said, the most critically acclaimed segment in all of sports podcasting out there is our Crowns and Clowns segment, where it delivers every single week. And if you want to listen to that segment and more of what we love to talk about here, us 3 knuckleheads who love talking about sports so much and are the best of friends, you got to listen to the show on a weekly basis. Come and indulge yourselves, feast your ears on the greatest sports podcast out there, Somewhat Sports.
Beautifully said, as always, Jurg. Beautifully said. Jurg and Dame, phenomenal job as always. I appreciate you guys steering the ship with me, offering your awesome analysis. Much appreciated. You guys are the best. To all the listeners listening, if you made it this far, we appreciate you. And until next time, peace.
Happy holidays.